The King and Queen of Jinhai. Episode 4. The King and Queen are getting married. The abandoned Riverside Theatre had survived 3 fires, 2 changes of ownership, 1 attempted demolition, and according to a story no one had ever been able to confirm, an opera singer who refused to leave after her death. It had not, however, been designed to contain the silence between Gu Zhen and Shen Lanyue. The two of them stood on opposite sides of the ruined stage beneath a ceiling painted with fading clouds. Dust drifted through the weak moonlight. Torn velvet curtains stirred whenever the wind slipped through the broken windows, and somewhere beneath the floorboards, water dripped with the irritating patience of a clock. Gu Zhen looked at Shen Lanyue. Shen Lanyue looked at Gu Zhen. Neither of them appeared particularly surprised any longer. That was, in Gu Zhen's opinion, the problem. A sensible person should have been surprised to discover that the woman their grandfather intended them to marry was the West Queen, ruler of half of Jinhai's underground world, owner of more hidden warehouses than most shipping companies, and the person responsible for humiliating 3 separate gangs that had once attempted to enter the western districts. Gu Zhen was surprised. He simply had no intention of showing it. Shen Lanyue, meanwhile, had arrived at much the same conclusion regarding the East King. She had expected many things from Gu Zhen over the years. Arrogance, certainly. Irritating calm, definitely. The sort of confidence found only in men who had never once in their lives been forced to carry their own luggage. She had not expected him to be the man who controlled the eastern docks, the old commercial quarter, 12 private security companies, and a network of informants that could discover the owner of an abandoned bicycle before the police had finished writing down its color. Gu Zhen finally broke the silence. "Your people followed mine 3 nights ago." Shen Lanyue raised one eyebrow. "Your people entered my district carrying weapons." "They were carrying umbrellas. Metal umbrellas. It was raining. It had stopped raining 2 hours earlier." Gu Zhen considered this. Jinhai weather is unpredictable. "Your excuses are worse than I expected. And your surveillance is better." It was almost a compliment. "Almost." Shen Lanyue folded her arms. "What are you planning?" "At this moment." "In general." "That is an unreasonably broad question." "We have apparently been engaged since before either of us knew how to walk. Our families expect us to marry. Your territory borders mine. Your men have been watching my warehouses, and Rongsheng Capital has begun circling Huacheng Group. I think I am entitled to one broad question." Gu Zhen's expression altered slightly at the mention of Rongsheng Capital. Shen Lanyue noticed. Of course she noticed. "You know about Rongsheng," he said. "Everyone with a telephone knows about Rongsheng. Not everyone knows they approached 3 of Huacheng's minority shareholders this week. Then perhaps those shareholders should be more careful about where they eat lunch." Gu Zhen looked at her for several seconds. "You had them followed. I had the restaurants watched. There is a difference. A legal difference. A philosophical one." The water continued to drip beneath the stage. Gu Zhen stepped down from the cracked wooden platform. "Rongsheng is not your problem." Shen Lanyue gave a small, humorless smile. "You have just discovered who I am, and already you are trying to tell me what is and is not my problem. This marriage is going to be exhausting." "There is no marriage yet." "Tell that to our grandmothers." "That unfortunately was impossible." Gu Zhen's grandmother had already selected a hotel ballroom, rejected 2 wedding planners, and begun referring to Shen Lanyue as her future granddaughter-in-law in conversations with strangers. Shen Lanyue's grandmother had gone further. She had ordered new curtains for a house Shen Lanyue did not own because, in her words, newly married people required brighter windows. Neither Gu Zhen nor Shen Lanyue had formally agreed to anything. Their families considered this a minor administrative delay. "Tomorrow evening," Gu Zhen said, "our families are meeting at the Shen residence." "I know. My grandfather said it was dinner. My grandmother said it was a simple family discussion." They exchanged a look. In their experience, there was nothing simple about a family discussion arranged by grandparents. Shen Lanyue turned towards the aisle. "We should leave separately." "Agreed. And neither of us tells our families what happened here." Obviously. Nor our people. Gu Zhen paused. It was not a long pause. It did not need to be. Shen Lanyue narrowed her eyes. Your people already know, don't they? One of them may have reached a conclusion. How many? One. Which one? Tang Rui. Shen Lanyue shut her eyes briefly. Tang Rui was Gu Zhen's closest lieutenant, an intelligent man with a strong memory, excellent instincts, and the unfortunate habit of reacting to emotional stress by reorganizing entire buildings. If Tang Rui knew, the Eastern organization would know by sunrise, not because he would betray Gu Zhen's confidence, but because everyone would notice that he had moved all the furniture and begin asking why. Lin Zia probably knows as well, Shen Lanyue admitted. Gu Zhen's mouth moved at one corner, probably. She saw your car outside. There were 6 cars outside. She knows which one is yours. How? She once had it towed. Gu Zhen stared at her. Shen Lanyue continued walking. You parked in front of one of our clinics. I was inside for 11 minutes. You blocked an ambulance. There was no ambulance. One arrived later. How much later? 4 hours. Gu Zhen stopped in the aisle. Your people towed my car because an ambulance might arrive 4 hours later. Preparedness is important. You charged me a storage fee. Administrative costs. For the first time that evening, Shen Lanyue looked genuinely amused. It lasted less than a second. Then she disappeared through the side doors, leaving Gu Zhen standing among the broken seats with the growing suspicion that marriage to Shen Lanyue would not merely be exhausting. It would be expensive. Outside, 2 black cars waited on opposite ends of the street. Shen Lanyue entered hers without looking back. Lin Zia sat in the front passenger seat, holding a folder she had not opened for the last 20 minutes. She waited until the car had driven 3 streets away from the theater. Then she said, so. Shen Lanyue looked out of the window. So what? Was he the East King? Why would you ask that? Because his car was outside, Tang Rui was pretending to be a lamppost across the road, and 12 men from the eastern districts were hiding badly in a noodle shop that closed last year. Shen Lanyue turned. Tang Rui was there. He was wearing a hat. What kind of hat? A fishing hat. Shen Lanyue looked forward again. Then it may not have been him. It was embroidered with the words East Harbor Angling Association. That seems unusually obvious. He was under stress. The driver kept his eyes carefully on the road. Everyone who worked for Shen Lanyue understood that there were moments when hearing became dangerous. A wise employee could temporarily lose the use of both ears when necessary. Lin Zia placed the unopened folder on her lap. Well. Shen Lanyue sighed, yes. Lin Zia remained silent. Then she turned around fully in her seat. Gu Zhen is the East King. You already knew. I suspected. Knowing is different. Apparently. Lin Zia stared through the windscreen. Her face moved through disbelief, concern, calculation, and something that looked alarmingly like delight. Do not, Shen Lanyue said. I haven't said anything. You are about to. The East King and West Queen are engaged. There it is. Do you understand what this means? Yes, it means both of our grandmothers have achieved something the city's police, business council, and 3 previous mayors failed to do. They united Jinhai. They arranged a dinner. The distinction may no longer matter. Shen Lanyue leaned back against the seat. Nothing has been united. Gu Zhen and I have agreed to nothing. Our organizations remain separate. Our territories remain separate. Our people are not to interfere with his, and no one is to treat this engagement as an alliance. Lin Zia nodded solemnly. Repeat that. Nothing has been united. And the organizations remain separate. And we are not to treat the engagement as an alliance. Good. Lin Zia turned forward again. A few seconds passed. Can we treat it as a strategic understanding? No. A temporary coordination mechanism. No. A family-supported ceasefire. There was no war. That has never stopped people from announcing a ceasefire. Shen Lanyue rubbed her forehead. Across the city, Gu Zhen entered his own car and found Tang Rui sitting inside with a laptop, 3 telephones, and an expression of severe professional concern. Gu Zhen closed the door. Tang Rui looked at him. Gu Zhen looked at Tang Rui. "Take off the hat," Gu Zhen said. Tang Rui removed the fishing hat. "Why was you wearing it?" "Disguise. You do not fish." "That is why no one would expect it." "Everyone expected it." Tang Rui placed the hat beside him. Was she the West Queen? Gu Zhen did not answer immediately. Tang Rui's fingers began moving across the laptop keyboard. "What are you doing?" "Preparing contingency plans." "Stop." Tang Rui stopped. "Delete whatever you just wrote. It is only a title." "What title?" Tang Rui turned the laptop slightly. On the screen were the words, "Protocol for the political and operational consequences of the East-West royal marriage." Gu Zhen closed the laptop. "There is no royal marriage." "Not yet. There may never be." "Your grandmother telephoned my mother this morning to ask whether I owned a dark blue suit suitable for an engagement banquet." Gu Zhen was silent. Tang Rui continued carefully. "My mother then telephoned my aunt. My aunt told her hairdresser. Her hairdresser's younger brother supplies flowers to the Shen residence. There are currently 600 white peonies being delivered tomorrow afternoon." "My grandmother dislikes peonies." "They are for Miss Shen's grandmother." "How do you know that?" "The invoice says future happiness arrangement." Gu Zhen stared ahead. The city lights moved across the dark windows as the car turned towards the Eastern District. "Only you know," he said. Tang Rui looked away. "Tang Rui. Officially." "How many?" "Officially, only me." "Unofficially." "The men at the noodle shop may have formed theories." "The noodle shop has been closed for a year." "That is why we chose it." "There were lights on. We brought lamps. And 12 people. Operational caution." "You occupied an abandoned noodle shop with 12 men and portable lamps opposite a secret meeting place." Tang Rui considered the description. "When you put it like that, it sounds noticeable." "It was noticeable." "Should I move the furniture?" Gu Zhen slowly turned towards him. "What furniture?" "At headquarters." "Why?" "I feel there may be a need for greater space." "There is not." Tang Rui nodded. His fingers twitched once towards the laptop. Gu Zhen placed one hand on it. "Do not write a protocol." "Understood." "Do not notify the district captains." "Understood." "Do not alter patrol routes, warehouse access, communication procedures, or seating arrangements." "Understood." "And do not call it a royal marriage." "Of course." Gu Zhen leaned back. Tang Rui waited almost a full minute. Would imperial consolidation be unacceptable as well? The car continued in silence. By 8 o'clock the following morning, no official announcement had been made. By 8:15, everyone important in Jinhai's underground world knew. The news did not travel in a straight line. It moved through tea houses, loading docks, mahjong rooms, private clubs, repair garages, and one unusually active flower market. It passed between people who insisted they were not gossiping, merely sharing operationally relevant information. It crossed the river in the pocket of a fish merchant, reached the northern outskirts through a funeral company, and entered the southern industrial district because a man named Brother Cairo had heard something from his cousin's wife's driving instructor. The details changed each time. In one version, the East King had proposed to the West Queen on the roof of the abandoned theatre, while helicopters circled overhead. In another, they had fought for 7 hours before deciding that marriage was the only honorable outcome. A third claimed Shen Lanyue had defeated Gu Zhen in single combat and demanded the eastern districts as her wedding gift. That version was especially popular in the West. The eastern districts preferred a story in which Gu Zhen had rescued Shen Lanyue from 40 assassins, and she had immediately recognized him as the only man worthy of standing beside her. No one knew where the 40 assassins had come from. By 9 o'clock there were 60. At 9:30, Gu Zhen arrived at the headquarters of his legitimate security company and discovered that the reception desk had been decorated with red ribbons. He stopped inside the entrance. The receptionist looked at the ribbons, then at him. "These were here when I arrived," she said. Gu Zhen looked towards Tang Rui. Tang Rui was standing beside the lift, holding a stack of reports and wearing the expression of a man who had never seen a ribbon in his life. "Remove them," Gu Zhen said. The receptionist began pulling them down. The lift opened. Inside stood 4 district captains, 2 accountants and a warehouse supervisor who normally avoided headquarters unless someone had died. Every one of them was smiling. The smiles disappeared when Gu Zhen entered. No one spoke during the journey to the 7th floor. The warehouse supervisor's smile returned twice and was suppressed both times. When the doors opened, Gu Zhen walked into the conference room. His chair had been moved. Beside it stood another chair. It was larger, newer and upholstered in pale cream leather. Gu Zhen looked at Tang Rui. Tang Rui looked genuinely offended. "That was not me." "Who did it?" No one answered. Gu Zhen rested one hand on the back of the cream chair. "Remove it." A district captain named Luo immediately stepped forward. "Boss, perhaps it would be useful to keep it." "Why?" Luo hesitated. "For visiting leadership." "What visiting leadership?" "Any visiting leadership. We have never required a second chair before. Circumstances develop." "Remove it." 2 men carried the chair away with the solemnity of pallbearers. Gu Zhen sat down. Around the table, 16 people opened folders they had not read. "The Eastern Organization remains unchanged," Gu Zhen said. "There is no alliance merger, joint command or transfer of territory. You will continue operating exactly as before." Heads nodded. "No one will contact the Western Organization without authorization." More nodding. "No one will send gifts." Luo slowly lowered his hand beneath the table. Gu Zhen saw it. "What did you send?" "Nothing important." "What?" "Tea." "How much tea?" "A respectful quantity." "How much?" 8 crates. Gu Zhen closed his eyes for a moment. "To whom?" "The West Queen's headquarters." "There is no headquarters. The address everyone pretends is not her headquarters." Tang Rui looked down at his reports. Gu Zhen's voice became quieter. "Recall it. The driver has already crossed the river." "Call him." Luo reached for his phone. At that exact moment, in a private dining room above a Western District restaurant, Shen Lanyue watched 8 crates of premium tea being carried through the door. Lin Zia stood beside them holding a card. "It says, May East and West share 1 cup beneath a fortunate sky." Shen Lanyue stared at the crates. "Send them back." "We cannot." "Why not?" "Our people have already sent a return gift." "What return gift?" Lin Zia glanced towards the window. Below, 2 trucks were pulling away from the restaurant. "Silk," she said. "How much silk?" "A respectful quantity." Shen Lanyue stood. Lin Zia. 12 bolts. "Why 12? 8 seemed insufficient." "Why were you competing with tea?" "We were protecting Western dignity." "By sending fabric." "Very expensive fabric." Shen Lanyue looked around the room. Her district captains sat at 3 tables, all attempting to appear innocent. One woman was hiding a red envelope beneath a ledger. Another had written the words Combined Emergency Response Proposal at the top of a notebook and was covering them with her hand. "Listen carefully," Shen Lanyue said. "There is no alliance." Everyone nodded. "There is no merger." More nodding. "There will be no changes to territory, authority, patrols, or business arrangements." A captain at the second table raised her hand. What? What about weddings? What about them? Should our people be permitted to attend weddings in the East? They have always been permitted to attend weddings in the East. Yes, but now should we attend more warmly? Shen Lanyue stared at her. The captain lowered her hand. Another man spoke from the far end. Queen, there is also the matter of titles. No, I have not asked the question yet. The answer is still no. Understood. Lin Zia unfolded another sheet of paper. There is one genuine operational issue. Finally, Rongsheng representatives met with Director Peng of Huacheng Group last night. The room changed. The smiles disappeared. The joking uncertainty settled into attention. Shen Lanyue took the paper. Director Peng owned 6% of Huacheng Group and believed himself to be significantly more important than 6% of anything should allow. Where? Jinhai Club, private room. They offered to acquire his shares through 2 intermediary firms. Did he agree? Not yet, he asked for 48 hours. Shen Lanyue read the summary twice. Who else have they approached? We confirmed 2, possibly 4. Does Gu Zhen know? Lin Zia's face became carefully blank. I thought there was no alliance. Shen Lanyue looked at her. Lin Zia waited. Send him the report, Shen Lanyue said. 3 captains exchanged glances. It is information, Shen Lanyue added, not cooperation. Of course, Lin Zia said. And do not attach a message. Naturally. No congratulations. I would never. No poetry. Lin Zia appeared wounded. Who do you think I am? 10 minutes later, Tang Rui placed Shen Lanyue's report on Gu Zhen's desk. A small card had been clipped to the front. Across it, in Lin Zia's handwriting, were the words, "A household should know when wolves approach the gate." Gu Zhen read the card. Then he looked at Tang Rui. Do not respond. I have not. What did you send? Nothing. Tang Rui. It's a map. Of what? Rongsheng's known intermediaries. Why? Professional courtesy. Gu Zhen held out his hand. Tang Rui gave him the accompanying card. It read, "A household should also know where the wolves sleep." Gu Zhen placed both cards on the desk. There is no household. Tang Rui nodded, not formally. The family announcement began at 4:30 that afternoon, although dinner was not scheduled until 6. The Shen residents occupied an old compound in the western part of the city, hidden behind grey walls and a line of ginkgo trees. It was not the largest family home in Jinhai, but it was old enough that size had become unnecessary. The house possessed the confidence of a place that had watched taller buildings rise around it and expected to outlive them all. Shen Lanyue arrived through the side entrance and immediately knew something had gone wrong. There were flowers everywhere. White peonies filled the entrance hall. Red lanterns hung beneath the eaves. 2 tables had been pushed together in the main reception room, and a photographer was discussing angles with Shen Lanyue's aunt. Her grandmother stood in the center of the confusion, directing servants, relatives, and one terrified florist. Grandmother, Shen Lanyue said. Old Madame Shen turned, her face brightened. You are late. It is 4:30. Exactly. Dinner is at 6. Guests arrive before dinner. The guests are our family. Family are the most dangerous guests, they inspect things. Shen Lanyue looked at the photographer. Why is he here? Photographs. Of what? You and Gu Zhen. Why? Her grandmother stared at her as though the answer were obvious. Because you are getting engaged. We are discussing an engagement. The discussion is finished. When? This morning. I was not present. You were busy. It concerned me. That is why we did not trouble you with the details. Shen Lanyue drew a slow breath. Her grandmother took her hand. Do not make that face. Gu Zhen is a good young man. Tall, handsome, educated, owns several companies, respects his elders, and does not have any obvious addictions. That is a very low standard. You are 30 years old, standards become practical with age. I am 27. Exactly, nearly 30. That is not how numbers work. It is how grandchildren work. Go upstairs, your dress is waiting. I brought a dress. It is black. Black is appropriate for dinner. Not this dinner. Before Shen Lanyue could object, two cousins appeared, one on each side, and began steering her towards the stairs. She could have stopped them. She could have stopped almost anyone in the house. But using the combat skills that had once disarmed 3 men in a warehouse against one's cousins was generally considered poor family etiquette. Upstairs, she discovered a pale silver dress laid across her bed. Lin Zia stood beside it. You knew, Shen Lanyue said. I knew there was a dress. You knew about the photographer. I suspected visual documentation. You knew this was an engagement banquet. Lin Zia examined the ceiling. Terminology remains disputed. Shen Lanyue pointed towards the door. Leave. Should I tell the Eastern delegation that the West Queen requires privacy? There is no Eastern delegation. A gong sounded in the courtyard. Lin Zia moved to the window. 3 black cars had entered through the main gate. Behind them came a 4th car carrying Gu Zhen's grandparents, followed by 2 more vehicles full of relatives, and, inexplicably, a truck containing the 12 bolts of silk that the Eastern organization had attempted to return. Lin Zia watched the truck stop beside the flower delivery. There appears to be a border dispute involving textiles. Shen Lanyue closed the curtains. Gu Zhen arrived at the front entrance wearing a dark blue suit selected by his grandmother and the expression of a man approaching a negotiation in which every participant intended to ignore him. His grandfather walked beside him carrying 2 boxes of tea. Why did you bring tea? Gu Zhen asked. A gift. There are 8 crates of tea outside. That is business tea, this is family tea. What is the difference? The boxes. Gu Zhen's grandmother struck his arm lightly with her fan. Stop questioning everything, smile. I am smiling. That is not a smile, that is the face you use when firing accountants. I have never fired an accountant. No wonder your companies are so complicated. The doors opened before Gu Zhen could answer. Old Madame Shen welcomed them, as though she had not spoken to Gu Zhen's grandmother 3 times that morning. The 2 grandmothers clasped hands, praised each other's health, criticized each other's refusal to rest, and immediately began arguing about where everyone should sit. Gu Zhen was guided into the reception room and positioned beside a carved screen covered with peonies. The photographer adjusted his camera. Where is Lanyue? Gu Zhen asked. Coming, said Shen Lanyue's aunt. Why is there a photographer? Memories. Of dinner. Of happiness. Gu Zhen glanced towards Tang Rui, who had been permitted to attend because Gu Zhen's grandmother believed every busy young businessman required a reliable assistant. Tang Rui stood near the wall beside Lin Zia. The 2 of them were speaking quietly. Gu Zhen's instincts warned him that this was dangerous. What are they discussing? He asked. His grandfather followed his gaze. Probably work. Young people cannot stop working. They were not discussing work. We returned the silk, Tang Rui whispered. We returned the tea, Lin Zia replied. The silk arrived again. The tea arrived again. Our people cannot accept 12 bolts in return for 8 crates. Our people cannot accept 8 crates without returning something of greater value. Then we are trapped. Unless the gifts are reclassified. Tang Rui considered this, joint ceremonial inventory. Temporary family property. Stored where? Neutral territory. They both looked towards the Shen family courtyard. The theater, Tang Rui suggested. Too damp. One of the river warehouses. Whose side? There is a warehouse on an island. That belongs to the Customs Bureau. They rarely use it. Lin Zia gave him an approving look. you are more practical than people say. People say I am extremely practical. Not in the West. Before Tang Rui could ask what people said in the West, the room fell quiet. Shen Lanyue had entered. The silver dress was simple, elegant, and much softer than anything she normally wore. Her hair had been pinned back with a single jade ornament belonging to her grandmother. For one brief moment, Gu Zhen forgot the room, the photographer, the underworld, Rongsheng Capital, and the fact that Shen Lanyue had once charged him a storage fee for his own car. Then she looked directly at him. The softness vanished from the moment. Not from her appearance. From the warning in her eyes. Gu Zhen understood it clearly. This is your family's fault too. He responded with the smallest inclination of his head. I know. Their grandmothers saw the exchange and were delighted. Look, Gu Zhen's grandmother whispered loudly, they already understand each other. Shen Lanyue reached his side. You knew about this, she murmured without moving her smile. I thought it was dinner. There is a photographer. I noticed. There are 600 peonies. My grandmother dislikes peonies. They are from your family. My grandfather likes them. He is allergic. Gu Zhen glanced at his grandfather, who was standing near the flowers and attempting not to sneeze. Apparently not enough, he said. The photographer raised his camera. Closer, please. Neither moved. A little closer. Shen Lanyue shifted half a step. Gu Zhen did the same. They remained separated by enough space to place a narrow table between them. The photographer lowered the camera. You are engaged, not attending a court hearing. Several relatives laughed. Shen Lanyue's hand moved towards Gu Zhen's arm. For 1 second, he thought she intended to strike him. Instead, she linked her arm through his. Her grip was perfectly gentle. The pressure of 2 fingers against a nerve near his elbow was not. Smile, she said. Gu Zhen smiled. The flash went off. Beautiful, the photographer said. Painful, Gu Zhen murmured. You look natural. You are cutting off circulation to my hand. Then stop looking as though you are planning an escape. I am planning an escape. Plan more discreetly. The photographer took another picture. In the background, Tang Rui and Lin Zia both watched with the grave attention of military observers, witnessing a new weapon system. Dinner began at 6:10 after 20 minutes of disputes over seating. The grandmothers wanted Gu Zhen and Shen Lanyue together. The grandfathers wanted them opposite each other so they could speak comfortably. One aunt believed tradition required the couple to face south. Another aunt insisted that the room's best light came from the east. A cousin attempted to solve the issue with a compass and discovered the table was not aligned with the house. Eventually, Gu Zhen and Shen Lanyue were seated side by side at the center. Tang Rui and Lin Zia sat at a smaller table near the rear with several younger relatives and one elderly uncle who spent most of the meal pretending not to listen to them. Old Madame Shen waited until the first dishes had been served. Then she raised her cup. Tonight, she announced, our 2 families celebrate an agreement made many years ago and delayed only because these 2 children required time to become sensible. Shen Lanyue looked at Gu Zhen. Were you consulted? No. Good. Why is that good? I would have been offended if only I was excluded. Across the table, Gu Zhen's grandmother continued. The formal engagement will be announced tomorrow. The ceremony will take place next month. The wedding date will be selected after consulting the almanac. Gu Zhen put down his chopsticks. Tomorrow. His grandmother smiled. Yes. Publicly. That is generally how announcements work. Shen Lanyue's father cleared his throat. It will be good for both companies. That sentence brought every business-minded relative to attention. Huacheng Group and the Shen family's Lanyue holdings had worked together before, but an engagement would change how investors, competitors and lenders viewed the relationship. It would suggest stability, shared interests, long-term alignment. It would also make Rongsheng Capital reconsider the ease with which Huacheng might be isolated. Gu Zhen understood this immediately. Shen Lanyue did too. Their eyes met. This time the exchange was different. Useful, her expression said. Potentially, his replied. Old Master Gu watched them with satisfaction. The young people agree. We have not said anything, Gu Zhen said. Exactly, his grandfather replied. No objections. That is not agreement. In family matters, silence is very efficient. The mail continued. Relatives discussed venues, guest lists, ceremonial gifts, and whether the engagement photographs should be printed in color or black and white. Gu Zhen's aunt volunteered to organize the invitations. Shen Lanyue's cousin offered to design a monogram combining their family names and produced 3 sketches before dessert. The first looked like a bank logo. The second resembled a warning sign. The third, according to Tang Rui, could be interpreted as a territorial map. He kept that observation to himself. At the smaller table, Linzia unfolded a napkin and drew 2 circles. This is not planning, she whispered. Of course not, Tang Rui said. It is merely a representation of family logistics. Naturally. She labeled one circle east and the other west. Guest movement, she said. Security overlap, Tang Rui added. Traffic control. Communication protocols. The elderly uncle beside them leaned closer. Are you arranging the wedding? No, they said together. He nodded wisely. Good, never volunteer, they will blame you for the food. At the main table, Shen Lanyue's grandmother produced a small velvet box. The room quieted again. Shen Lanyue looked at the box. Then at Gu Zhen. Did you bring a ring? She asked. No. Are you sure? I would remember. Old Madame Shen opened the box. Inside lay an old jade pendant, carved in the shape of 2 joined fish. This belonged to my mother, she said. It was given to me when I married. Tonight I give it to Lanyue. The humor left the room, gently rather than all at once. Shen Lanyue accepted the pendant with both hands. Her grandmother's fingers closed over hers. A marriage is not 2 people losing themselves, the old woman said. It is 2 people deciding that neither will face the world alone. Remember that before you argue with him. Shen Lanyue's gaze softened. We have not agreed to marry, she said, but the words had less resistance in them. Her grandmother patted her hand. Then remember it before you decide. Old Master Gu placed a narrow wooden case before Gu Zhen. Inside was a fountain pen, black lacquer with a gold nib, worn smooth near the cap. Your father signed the papers for his first company with this, he said, and I signed the papers for mine. Use it for something important, not one of your endless contracts. Gu Zhen lifted the pen. He rarely spoke of his father at family gatherings. None of them did. The grief had grown old enough to sit quietly among them, no longer demanding attention but never truly leaving. Thank you, he said. Shen Lanyue glanced at him. For the first time since the theater, neither of them was looking at a rival, a ruler, or an inconvenient fiancé. They were simply 2 people seated at a family table, carrying histories neither had chosen. The moment lasted until Gu Zhen's grandmother clapped her hands. Now the ring. Gu Zhen nearly dropped the pen. A jeweler was brought in from the side room. He had apparently been waiting there since 5. You hired a jeweler? Gu Zhen asked. We invited one, his grandmother corrected. The jeweler opened 6 boxes. Shen Lanyue stared at them. Absolutely not. You must choose, old Madame Shen said. I do not need a ring tonight. The photographer is still here. That is not a reason. It is an expensive reason. Gu Zhen examined the rings. 3 were 2 ornate. One was so large it looked capable of affecting balance. Another was surrounded by small diamonds arranged like defensive fortifications. The final ring was simple, a pale oval stone set in white gold. Shen Lanyue noticed him looking at it. That one, she said. The room erupted in approval. Gu Zhen turned. You chose quickly. The others are terrible. A practical basis for commitment. We work with what we have. The jeweler handed him the ring. Gu Zhen held it between his fingers. Shen Lanyue extended her left hand. The entire room watched. So did Tang Rui and Lin Zia. So did the elderly uncle, who had abandoned all pretense of disinterest. Gu Zhen slid the ring onto Shen Lanyue's finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Their grandmothers had probably measured her hand while she slept. The photographer's flash filled the room. Shen Lanyue looked down at the ring. This changes nothing, she whispered. Naturally, Gu Zhen said. Our organizations remain separate. Completely. Our territories remain unchanged. Obviously. And you are not allowed to send any more tea. Only if you stop sending silk. Agreed. It was the first agreement they had made all evening. Unfortunately, the photograph captured the exact moment they looked at each other after it. To anyone who did not know them, they appeared almost tender. The official engagement announcement was released at 9 the next morning. It contained one photograph, 4 paragraphs of carefully neutral language, and no mention of criminal empires, territorial arrangements, or the abandoned theater. Huacheng Group President Gu Zhen and Lanyue Holdings Chairwoman Shen Lanyue announce engagement, read the headline. Within 12 minutes, every major business publication in Jinhai had reposted it. Within 20, Huacheng's share price rose. Within 40, 2 minority shareholders who had been considering Rongsheng's offer asked for more time. Within an hour, Rongsheng Capital called an emergency meeting. The photograph traveled even faster through the underground world. In eastern tea houses, men enlarged it on their phones and studied Gu Zhen's expression for signs of strategy. In western clubs, women debated whether Shen Lanyue's hand rested on his arm voluntarily. At the docks, a shipping foreman declared that the angle of their shoulders proved a defensive alliance. At a mahjong hall near the river, an elderly woman who had once smuggled jewelry through 3 provinces looked at the photograph and said, "They like each other." No one argued with her. By noon, a florist had begun selling arrangements named King Meets Queen. By 2, a restaurant offered an East-West harmony banquet for couples. By evening, imitation versions of Shen Lanyue's engagement ring were available in 3 markets. She discovered this when Lin Zia placed one on her desk. "Why do you have that?" "Evidence." "Of what?" "Commercial enthusiasm." Shen Lanyue held the imitation beside the real ring. The resemblance was poor but enthusiastic. "Destroy it. It cost 28 yuan. Then return it. The seller will be offended." "Why do you care?" "He works for us." Shen Lanyue put the ring down. "Of course he does." Her office door opened. A secretary entered, carrying a stack of messages. "Chairwoman, reporters are asking whether the engagement will lead to a merger between Lanyue Holdings and Huacheng Group. Rongsheng Capital has requested a formal meeting. Director Peng wants to speak with you privately, and your grandmother has asked whether you prefer red or gold invitation envelopes. Tell the reporters there is no merger. Tell Rongsheng we are unavailable. Tell Director Peng I know who he met at Yunhai Club, and tell my grandmother." Shen Lanyue stopped. There was no safe answer to the final question. "Tell her I am in a meeting." The secretary hesitated. "She is waiting on line 2. Shen Lanyue looked at the telephone. Then at Lin Zia. Lin Zia stepped backwards. "I cannot protect you from that." Across the river, Gu Zhen faced a similar problem. His grandmother had sent 12 fabric samples to his office and demanded an opinion. Tang Rui had arranged them across the conference table, according to color, cost, and what he described as strategic visual impact. "They are envelopes," Gu Zhen said. "Symbolism matters." "To whom?" "Everyone. Choose one." Tang Rui pointed to a dark red sample. "This communicates stability without excessive celebration." "It is paper." "Good paper." Gu Zhen's phone rang. It was Shen Lanyue. He answered, "What happened?" Why do you assume something happened? You called me. We need to discuss Director Peng. Gu Zhen glanced at Tang Rui. Tang Rui immediately began gathering the samples, then paused to leave the dark red one behind. Where? Gu Zhen asked. Somewhere our people cannot watch us. That excludes most of Jinhai. A public place. Reporters are following both of us. Then somewhere so public that no one can tell whether we are discussing business or wedding flowers. Gu Zhen looked at the envelope sample. There is a hotel lounge near Central Square. Too obvious. That is the point. An hour later, Gu Zhen and Shen Lanyue sat beside the tall windows of the Jinhai Grand Hotel, while a pianist played quietly in the corner, and 6 reporters pretended to order tea at nearby tables. Shen Lanyue wore the engagement ring. Not because she wished to make a statement. Because her grandmother had telephoned twice to confirm it was still on her hand. Gu Zhen noticed it. He did not comment. Director Peng has agreed to meet Rongsheng again tonight, Shen Lanyue said. He told me he was visiting his brother. His brother lives in Chengdu. Director Peng is not imaginative. Rongsheng offered him 12% above market value. He will ask for 20. They may pay it. Gu Zhen poured tea into her cup before filling his own. At the nearest table, 2 reporters leaned slightly closer. Huacheng can survive losing Peng's shares, he said. But not if his sale encourages the others. Correct. Then why have you not stopped him? Gu Zhen looked through the window towards Central Square. Because I want Rongsheng to believe they are succeeding. Shen Lanyue went still. You are letting them accumulate shares. Through intermediaries I control. How many? Enough. That is not a number. It is the number you are receiving. She studied him. Then slowly she smiled. It was not the smile from the engagement photographs. It was the smile of the West Queen, recognizing a trap worthy of attention. You intend to let Rongsheng reveal every shareholder willing to betray you, she said. And every lender willing to support them. Then force the intermediaries to reverse position before the vote. Possibly, leaving Rongsheng exposed. Potentially. You are irritating. Frequently. A reporter's camera clicked. Shen Lanyue's smile vanished. They will say we are discussing the wedding. Let them. What do you need from me? Nothing. You did not agree to meet me in a hotel lounge, surrounded by reporters, because you need nothing. Gu Zhen took a sip of tea. Rongsheng believes the engagement means your company will support Huacheng. I need them to believe that more strongly. So you do need something. An appearance. How romantic. Attend Huacheng's foundation gala on Friday. As your fiancé. That is technically what you are. She looked down at the ring, temporarily. Of course. And in return, the Eastern docks will reduce handling fees for Lanyue Holdings shipments for 6 months. Shen Lanyue laughed once. You were negotiating freight rates during our first public meeting after the engagement. You asked for something in return. 12 months. 8, 10, and priority during storm delays. 9, standard priority. 9, first priority on medical cargo. Agreed. They both reached for the teapot at the same time. Their hands touched. Neither moved immediately. At 3 nearby tables, cameras clicked in rapid succession. Shen Lanyue withdrew her hand. This photograph will be everywhere within an hour. Then Rongsheng will be pleased. Until they are not. That is the idea. Outside the hotel, Tang Rui stood beside Gu Zhen's car, while Linzia leaned against Shen Lanyue's. Neither had been invited into the lounge. Both had accepted this with professional maturity for almost 7 minutes. What do you think they are discussing? Linzia asked. Rongsheng. Only Rongsheng. Probably. A camera flash reflected against the hotel windows. Lin Zia tilted her head. That did not look like Rongsheng. It may have been a document exchange. Their hands touched. Documents can be small. You are loyal. You are intrusive. Also loyal. Tang Rui's phone vibrated. He looked at the message. What is it? Lin Zia asked. The district captains want to know whether Friday's Foundation Gala should be treated as a joint appearance. What did you tell them? I told them there is no joint command. That was not the question. I know. Lin Zia's phone vibrated next. She read the screen. Our people want to send an honor guard. Absolutely not. Agreed, it would look threatening. And obvious. What about plain clothes? Tang Rui looked at her. Lin Zia smiled. I am joking. She was not. Across Jinhai, the engagement altered behavior in ways neither Gu Zhen nor Shen Lanyue had authorized. Street disputes near the river declined, because no one knew whether provoking one side now meant provoking both. A group attempting to extort a Western nightclub abandoned the plan after hearing that the East King's people might attend the owner's daughter's wedding. Two rival transport crews resolved a 6-month argument over loading space because, as one driver explained, there is going to be a royal wedding. We should show civilization. Even the police noticed the city had become unusually quiet. Deputy Commissioner Zhao stood in front of a map in his office, studying the latest reports. No major incidents in the east for 3 days, he said. An inspector nodded. The west is also quiet. Why? The inspector hesitated. Everyone in Jinhai's police headquarters knew rumors about the East King and West Queen. Officially, neither existed. Unofficially, half the department believed they were real, and the other half believed they were useful names for explaining unsolved patterns. There is an engagement, the inspector said. Deputy Commissioner Zhao turned. What engagement? Gu Zhen and Shen Lanyue. Business people get engaged every day. Not these business people. Zhao looked at the map again. The eastern and western incident markers seemed almost to lean away from the river. Increase observation, he said. Of whom? Everyone. In a private office on the top floor of Rongsheng Capital, Chairman Lu Rong looked at the same engagement photograph for the 5th time. He was a broad-faced man in his late 50s who had built his company by purchasing troubled firms, replacing their leadership and selling whatever remained profitable. He believed every organization contained weakness and every person had a price. The engagement complicated both beliefs. Across the desk sat his daughter, Lu Meilin, recently returned from abroad and already serving as vice president of strategic investments. She picked up the photograph. They look close, she said. Photographs lie. Not always. Gu Zhen has avoided marriage for years. Perhaps he was waiting for Shen Lanyue. Chairman Lu disliked the possibility enough to dismiss it. This is a family arrangement. Family arrangements can become real. He looked at his daughter. Why are you interested? Lu Meilin placed the photograph down. I am interested in Huacheng. Gu Zhen is Huacheng. If his decisions are influenced by Shen Lanyue, then she becomes part of the calculation. Can she be separated from him? They have been publicly engaged for 1 day. They are not yet welded together. Then find the weakness. Lu Meilin smiled faintly. I intend to. Neither of them noticed the man standing outside the office door long enough to hear the final sentence. He was a junior assistant, forgettable by profession and underpaid by design. By midnight, the information had reached a bartender near the eastern docks. By 1 in the morning, Tang Rui knew. By 1:15, Lin Zia did too. At 1:20, both sent messages to their respective leaders. Gu Zhen read his while standing in his apartment kitchen, still wearing the shirt from the hotel meeting. Shen Lanyue read hers while removing the jade pin from her hair. Neither replied immediately. Then Gu Zhen's phone rang. Shen Lanyue was calling. He answered. You received the message. Yes. Lu Meilin will approach one of us. Probably you. Why me? She has met you before. At 2 conferences. She asked Lin Zia whether you were married. There was a pause. When? Last year. Why did Lin Zia not tell me? Why would she tell you? Why did she tell you? Because she tells me everything. That seems unhealthy. Tang Rui tells you what color paper your grandmother prefers. That is operationally relevant. Shen Lanyue laughed quietly. Gu Zhen realized it was the first time he had heard her laugh when no one else was present. The thought stayed with him a fraction longer than it should have. If Lu Meilin approaches you, Shen Lanyue said, do not reject her too quickly. You want me to encourage her. I want to know what she wants. And if she is interested for personal reasons, then I am sure the East King can survive being admired. You sound unconcerned. Should I be concerned? Gu Zhen looked through the kitchen window towards the distant lights of the Western District. No, he said. Good. Another pause. Shen Lanyue. What? Wear the ring on Friday. Her voice changed slightly for Rongsheng. For the appearance. Of course. And perhaps choose the dark red envelopes. Silent. Then Tang Rui showed you the samples. He conducted an analysis. Lin Zia prefers gold. Gold is excessive. I agree. It was their second agreement. When the call ended, Gu Zhen remained by the window for several moments. Across the city, Shen Lanyue looked down at the engagement ring resting on her bedside table. Neither of them considered the engagement real. Neither trusted the other completely. Neither intended to surrender territory, authority, or independence. But when Jinhai woke the next morning, the East King's people had quietly adjusted patrol routes to avoid interfering with Western medical shipments. The West Queen's organization had ordered its clubs to report any Rongsheng representatives asking questions about Huacheng. No agreement had been signed. No alliance had been announced. No command had been given. Yet the city had already begun rearranging itself around them. Far from the family homes, flower markets, and hotel lounges, a courier entered a private room beneath an unmarked gambling house in the northern district. 3 men sat around a table. They were not from Jinhai. On the wall behind them hung a map marked with routes leading into the city. The courier placed the engagement photograph beneath the lamp. One of the men picked it up. He studied Gu Zhen's hand resting near Shen Lanyue's, the ring on her finger, and the expression they had failed to hide when they looked at each other. Since when, he asked, were the East King and West Queen on the same side? No one answered. Outside, beyond the shuttered windows, Jinhai remained peaceful. For the moment,